your go-to?
Yes, for startups. Actually, this is good startup advice. You can have arguments all day about this stack or that stack, biased toward speed of development, because in the early days of a company, there's just too much to build, and you've got to go so fast because oftentimes you're going to have some runway. You're going to run out of money if you don't get a product to market. That's all that matters. So don't get tied up in, stay off Hacker News. Like, don't have arguments about tech stacks. What I really love, though, if you agree with that and you want to bias towards speed, just pick up Node.js, maybe Mongo. Next.js is a newer kind of React-based framework that's really popular. It's great. It'll help you move fast. Just build fast. Because honestly, if you get to a certain scale, you're going to have to rip all this stuff up anyway. It truly doesn't matter. And if you've got great engineers, they can learn another language anyway. So it just, don't overthink it. Just go for speed.
Just getting that proof of concept, that POC out, so that way you have something to sell instead of just describing something that doesn't exist. I definitely have worked with a lot of salespeople. They sold something and it doesn't exist, and I'm not sure I can make it exist. It's outside my ability.
Get to market. Great engineers are pragmatic, and CTOs are pragmatic too. It doesn't matter.
And meaning they actually sell something that exists.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things you learn too when you're going through engineering leadership. In the early days, everyone's very, and I was too, I'm not saying I'm any better, but you're very precious about your language or your tech stack or your favorite framework. And when you become a leader of engineers, you start to pattern match a little bit. And what you realize is, everyone's arguing about this stuff all the time and everyone's got an opinion. And nothing matters more than, did we get a product to market? Is it secure? Is it fast? And you can do a lot of that stuff in a lot of different languages. There are many paths to get to the same outcome. And being an engineering leader, ultimately, it ends up not being about any particular language or framework anyway, most of the time, unless your product is so highly specialized. Then sure, the languages start to matter a bit. If it's AI, you might really bias toward, if it's machine learning, you might really bias toward Python or whatever. But most of the time, it doesn't matter.
I always say R, and then I think someone pops out of the bushes and then throws a piece of fruit at me. They're like, oh.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, everyone's really into Python.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard fun stories about punch cards and statistical analysis software and all of that stuff, and things change. That's the only constant. And not being married to a single programming language because that's yours. You have to learn new languages almost constantly, and it's very important, at least like on the technical end. And then on the leadership end, it's like what languages can actually produce results, because you don't want to be in such an obtuse language or try to use Rust to do AI. It's probably not going to work out very well.
And the other thing too is that all this stuff runs on the same computer processors, and under the hood, deep down, nothing's different between any of this stuff, because it's all it's all ones and zeros in the end. It's just different implementations. And so that's the other great thing too. I really do encourage engineers, especially, learn different languages. One, you'll see a lot of similarities. There's just a lot in common. But then you'll start to think about differences and trade-offs. And that's the thing about engineering leadership, or leadership in general. Every decision has trade-offs. Every design decision in a piece of software, every product roadmap, every financial decision, it's all just trade-offs. And the art of how you make those trade-offs, that's strategy. That's strategic thinking.
And if something doesn't have trade-offs, chances are you're not looking at the full picture.
100%. Nothing's free. Nothing. And, you don't have to have some big fancy title to be dealing with those things. Every, individual contributor, every software engineer, you're making decisions and weighing trade-offs every day at work, constantly. Recruiting, hiring, all these things have trade-offs. Yeah.
Recruiting talent and the way you do it, whether you outsource it to another country or you keep it internal, whether you go out to a contracting firm and have them bring their people in. Like, there's a lot of things going on in that space of running a company and a lot of decisions you have to make. And sometimes not everyone likes the decisions that are made, but,
that's a separate concern.
Lots of politics. That's literally what I feel like my experience at a consulting firm was just a very long college course in politics.
Well, that's too bad. That's a waste of energy.
But I mean, definitely learned a lot. I learned about a lot of international politics in a company. It is very intriguing nonetheless.
Yeah.
So do you have any wrap up thoughts or big ideas that you want to share?
Oh, I just think, for anyone, getting into their career, just it's easy to get into the day-to-day and to kind of lose yourself a little bit. Make sure you've got some breathing space. Make sure you pull back a bit. Think about your career and what you're doing and zoom out. It is easier to zoom out and look at it as a whole later when you've got experience and you start noticing patterns or trade-offs. And so if you don't have the experience, find a mentor, find a sounding board. Someone outside of work is great, probably much better.
Yep.
Good to have an internal sounding board too, but someone who can help you see things and someone who's got experience. I think if I had a career regret, in my early days of my career, I was a one-person show a lot of the time, and I didn't have a sounding board until a little later in my career. And I still learned a lot. I would have learned a lot more faster if I had someone to help me see things, someone a few steps ahead. And so that's another piece of advice is just find someone. We're all trying to figure this out. It's all a freak show. It's okay.
You mean no one has all the answers?
Nope. Haven't seen it yet.
So the thing, I was talking with another techie before this, really big, surprising. And they were running into, they want a mentor, but how to go out and get one. And I'm like, well, you find someone that has a job that you look up to or someone that you respect. And if you don't know them, you cold contact them. And they're like, what if they reject me? And I was like, sometimes in order to have ambition, you almost chase being rejected. Mm-hmm. And I mean, is that kind of in line with some of your experience with because I'm sure more people reach out to you to be mentored than are possible, or getting a mentor yourself, because a lot of techies aren't very social, not very well networked. I run a meetup and a lot of them don't even talk to each other. And I'm like, please go get beer, hang out, talk to each other, network. It's all good. And I mean, I know, but anyway, how do you get a mentor? Thanks for listening to Sarah in Tech. Feel free to email me at sarah@sarahintech.net or follow me on Instagram @sarahintech. Hope you enjoyed listening.